Ojai. Ecuador, the state in the northwest of South America. In the west, Ecuador is washed by the Pacific Ocean, in the north borders on Colombia, in the east and the south on Peru. The Galapagos Islands are a part of Ecuador. In 1830, the Department of Quito, allocated from the Republic Great Colombia, was proclaimed the independent state with the name Ecuador. As the territory of the state is located on both sides of the equator. In the territory of present Ecuador there lived various Indian tribes for a long time, a penalty, to a whale, a curbstone, Cañar and others. They were engaged in hunting, fishery and agriculture. At the end of the first millennium, the Indians of the tribe a penalty living on the coast intruded in mountainous areas and, having subdued local population, Indians of the tribe to a whale and other tribes. Having partially exterminated them, having partially assimilated, created the state which in the Latin American literature is called the Kingdom to Kiev. In the 15th century, about 1460, the Kingdom to Kiev was won by the state of Inca of Tawantinsuy. Process of gain lasted about 15 years. Most of the population of the state of Inca, a ruling caste, was made by Indians of the tribe of Quechua. As a result of this gain, language of Quechua became the most widespread Indian language in the territory of present Ecuador. The territory of Ecuador for Spain was won by Francisco Pizarro's associates, Bartolomé Ruiz. 1526, the first landing of troops. And Sebastián de Belalcázar. I conquered the territory of Ecuador by 1531. They built on the place of the ancient Indian settlement San Francisco de City, Quito. In 1529 Pizarro received a position of the General Captain of Newcastle, the territory of modern Peru and Ecuador. And in 1539 appointed the brother Gonzalo the Governor San Francisco de Quito. Having won the territory and not having found large-scale deposits of gold and silver there, Spaniards began to create in the country of a plantation on which the Indians and slaves brought from Africa worked. The great value in mountainous areas received sheep breeding. The 19th century was marked for Ecuador and all Latin America by national liberation wars and revolutions. One of revolutions took place in Quito in August 1809, in honor of which subsequently on August 10 in Ecuador the Independence Day was proclaimed. The national movement won in 1822 when troops of Colombia beat Spaniards. Control over Ecuador was received by Simon Bolivar. In 1822-1830, Ecuador is a part of Great Colombia, then this country was called Quito area. On May 13, 1830 the Independent Republic of Ecuador was proclaimed. From this date the country carries the modern name. Throughout all the 19th century and in the first years of the 20th century, life of Ecuador passes under the sign of bitter struggle between two parties, conservatives and liberals. Intervention in the fate of Ecuador of the European countries begins with the middle of the 19th century. In 1845, under pressure from Britain in Ecuador, the law on slavery cancellation was adopted. In the 1868 years the Ecuadorian president, actually the dictator, Gabriel Garcia Moreno corresponded with France about establishment of protectorate. At the end of the 19th century, active investments of the foreign capital into Ecuador began. The British were engaged in oil search, and Americans, development of plantations of cocoa and coffee, and construction of the railroads. In 1906, under the Constitution, the Catholic Church is officially separated from the state. Since 1923 in Ecuador, commercial production of oil began. Approximately in the same time, since the beginning of the 1920th years, in Ecuador the radical organizations, socialists, anarchists, communists began to arise. In 1925-28 they organized several armed revolts suppressed by the government of Ecuador in Ecuador. In 1941, war between Ecuador and Peru because of the extensive territory in headwaters of Amazon. The Peru army was more numerous and efficient and inflicted a number of defeats over Ecuadorian forces. As a result, disputed territory about 280,000 got to this country. About the same as the area of modern Ecuador. In the night of August 31 for September 1, 1975, a coup attempt, sponsored by American Texaco Gulf Oil. On April 29, 1979, after nearly 10 years of military dictatorship, the first election of the president of the country according to the constitution took place. Jaime Roldos Aguilera won on them a victory, having collected more than 1 million votes, record for Ecuador, and entered a position on August 10, 1979. After leaving party of the Integrated National Forces, concentration de Fuerzas Populares. In 1980 he created Party of the People, Changes in Democracy. Partido Pueblo, Cambio y Democracia. On May 24, 1981 the plane with Roldos on board crashed in mountains Huarapunga in the province of the Sucre. All passengers died. Roldos Mark Bucaram's wife, Minister of Defense Marco Subia Martinez with the wife, 2 military officers and 3 other their satellites. In view of repeated threats of life because of his reformatory policy, death of 2 key witnesses in road accidents during investigation and the testimonies of other witnesses of plane crash contradicting each other, Roldos's death generated the version that he was killed as a result of a secret plot. 1984-1988 time of government of the President Leon Febres Cordero. On March 9, 1931, on December 15, 2008. His right-centrist government was one of the most repressive in the history of Ecuador. In 1987 Cordero suppressed a mutiny of military under the leadership of the General Frank Vargas Passos, who accused Cordero's government of corruption and extremism. After suppression of a mutiny, the period of cruel repressions during which many representatives of opposition were subjected to arrests, followed tortures or just disappeared. The special attention was drawn by a case of disappearance of brothers of Restrepo. 12 and 16 years. It is from Colombia, which bodies weren't found after their arrest by police and the subsequent disappearance. 1997 The parliament stripped of power the President Abdallah Bucaram, for intellectual inability to run the country. 2000 On January 9 the administration of the following President, Jamil Mahmoud, declared intention to refuse national currency sucre and to accept United States dollar as official currency for an exit from an economic crisis. It led to many thousands protests of Ecuadorian Indians and labor unions of demanding corruption and economic policy of the president. 2000. On January 21, the commander of a regiment of presidential protection, Colonel Lucio Gutierrez, it was ordered to them to disperse protesters. During storm of the building of National Parliament withdrew from command, and when the building was occupied, he together with two heads of rebels was included into the so-called Government of National Rescue, which, however, existed some hours. 2000. On January 22, the interfered command of armed forces, General Mendoza, delegated the power to the Vice President Gustavo Noboa, and Gutierrez for 6 months was flung in prison. Gutierrez reached will the popular politician, with assistance of the Indian movement, Pachakutik, created political party Sociedad Patriotica. 2002, Lucio Gutierrez won the first rich man of Ecuador, the Banana King, Alvaro Noboa presidential elections. The victory to him was ensured by promises to return Ecuadorian oil under control of Ecuador. Soon, however, it became clear that the methods of improvement of Ecuadorian economy elected by the new head of state who isn't able to correct a situation. Inflation grew at catastrophic rates, corruption struck all levels of the power. Eventually the president was forced to ask for the help the USA and the IMF. The drastic measures which followed it in economy led to a bigger impoverishment of the population and sharp growth of discontent of the left-wing and Indian parties supporting Gutierrez on elections. The Vice President Palacio separated from him, having remained faithful to old populist slogans. 2004 November, the opposition tried to initiate an impeachment to the president, organizing Massachusetts protests. Gutierrez was saved then by support of army and split in the camp of opposition. The violations of the constitution allowed by Gutierrez concerning the higher judicial authority became a reason for protests. In December 2004, his supporters in parliament of the country replaced most of members of the Supreme Court. As a result, the Supreme Court, which was considered as an opposition stronghold, became absolutely loyal to Lucio Gutierrez. Opponents of the head of state immediately accused him of dictatorship establishment attempt. Meanwhile, at the suggestion of the president, the Supreme Court dismissed all charges from the former presidents of Ecuador, Abdallah Bucaram, 1996-1997. and Gustavo Noboa, 2000-2003, who were accused of corruption. A bit later he even allowed both presidents to return home from emigration. It led to Massachusetts protests. People expressed the indignation of the fact that responsible for their distress is forgiven and won't be punished. 2005, on April 15, against the background of the escalating political crisis, the President Gutierrez imposed state of emergency in the capital of the country of Quito and declared dissolution of new structure of the Supreme Court, having tried to confer on him responsibility for the unpopular decision. The opposition accused Lucio Gutierrez of usurpation of the power again. In Quito, large-scale street protests began. Already on April 16, state of emergency was repealed. As a result of a turmoil, according to different data, died from 1 to 3 people, dozens of people got wounds and poisonings with tear gas. On April 19, the police chief of Ecuador, General Jorge Poveda, resigned, and then the exit from submission to the president was announced by army. 2005, on April 20, a banana putsch. The Parliament of Ecuador, the National Congress, Congreso Nacional. At a session there were only deputies from opposition. Stripped of power, Lucio Gutierrez, an hour later swore in as the head of state Vice President Alfredo Palacio.
Gutierrez ran from the presidential palace by helicopter and, without having an opportunity to leave the country, in search of a political asylum, took refuge in Embassy of Brazil.
The Prosecutor General's Office of Ecuador issued the warrant for the arrest of Gutierrez, having accused the ex-president of cruelty in relation to protesters. (2006) Elections on which the victory was won by the candidate of the left forces Rafael Correa took place on November 25. He collected 57% of votes. His opponent Alvaro Noboa received only 43%. On the eve of elections, Rafael Correa's victory wasn't so obvious. In the first round he took the second place and only by means of a large-scale prairie campaign could become the leader of a pre-election race. Before Rafael Correa was the Minister of Finance of Ecuador. The young economist studying in Europe and the USA promised to expel from the country all foreign oil companies and to refuse to pay an external debt of $10 billion. As a result, Rafael Correa was expelled from the government, but gained popularity among Ecuadorian poor people who make 75% of the 14 million population of the country. He promises to turn Ecuador into one more country with the strong presidential power by an example of Venezuela in which oil revenues are spent for social needs. Alvaro Noboa, who lost elections, is the complete antithesis to the rival. He is the richest citizen of Ecuador. In 1994 I inherited from the father the huge business empire from 110 enterprises, and I increased a condition of family, being engaged in trade in bananas, the main natural wealth of Ecuador after oil. The relation to the USA became key difference between candidates. Rafael Correa is known for the anti-Americanism and was on friendly terms with one of the main enemies of the White House, the president of Venezuela Hugo Chavez. Alvaro Noboa, on the contrary, wishes that Ecuador froze a relationship with Venezuela and Cuba and instead strengthened a relationship with the USA. 2007, on September 30, during elections to the Constitutional Assembly of Ecuador, supporters of the President Rafael Correa received the majority of places that allowed them to make the new constitution of the country based on his concept of socialism of the 21st century. 2008. The constitution is adopted. 2009, on April 26, during the presidential elections, the current president Rafael Correa won a victory already in the first round, having received nearly 52% of votes. His main rivals were the previous president Lucio Gutierrez, who received 28%, and the richest citizen of Ecuador Alvaro Noboa, who managed to win round nearly 12% of voters. 2010, on September 30, police and armed forces tried to displace the president and to seize power in the country. 2011, on May 8, during the national referendum, Ecuadorians supported a number of reforms which include the ban of gambling and a bullfight, strengthening of control of executive power over judicial, and also establishment of special public authority on observation of Massachusetts media. 2013, on February 17, Rafael Correa won a victory on elections and was re-elected for the third time on a post of the President of Ecuador. 2017, on April 2, Lenin Moreno in the second round won a victory on elections, having bypassed Guillermo Lasso's rival with result of 51.15% and became the president. The equator crossing the country in 25 kilometers to the north of the capital city of Quito gave her the name. In the west of the country, along the coast of the Pacific Ocean, lowlands and the foothills of the Andes were stretched. In the center of the country, the Andes consisting of two parallel ridges, western the Cordilleras and east the Cordilleras, with cones gone up.
Chimborazo, 6310 m.
And acting are located. Cotopaxi, 5896 m, one of the highest volcanoes, an active volcano of Tungurahua -5023 m, are periodically thrown up.
East part of the country is located within the Amazonian lowland.
Ecuador has overland borders with Colombia -590 kilometers and Peru -1420 kilometers. The country is covered by dense network of the rivers, a she part of which are inflows of Amazon, damp evergreen forests, are replaced in the south by the Letnazaliani woods, light forests in the center and semi-deserts in the southwest in the north. Animals: jaguars, pumas, small deer, wild pigs, bakers, battleships, anteaters. Ecuador is located in hot climatic zones, equatorial, the country north, and subequatorial. Temperature of July +25 C. Temperature of January +24 C. There is no amplitude of temperatures, one season of year. Average monthly temperatures in Quito, at the height of 2800 m, are +13 C. In the south from +23 to +27 C. Osakov drops out from 100 m a year in the south, up to 60-100 m a year on east slopes of the Andes. Climatic and biologically, Ecuador accurately is divided into four parts: costa, coast, sierra, a mountain part, Oriente, Amazonia, the jungle, and Galapagos Islands. Republic. The head of state and the governments, the president, is elected by the population for a 4-year term. The second term in a row is possible. Parliament, the unicameral National Assembly, 137 deputies are elected by the population for a 4-year term. Judicial authority, National Court of Justice, consisting of 21 judges. Political parties, by results of elections in 2013. Alliance pays, the left, 91 deputy. The leader of the party, the current President Moreno. Creation of opportunities, centrist, 12 deputies. The Social Christian Party is right-centrist, 6 deputies. Party of Patriotic Society, left-centrist, nationalist, 6 deputies. Multinational Unity of Left, left-wing radical, including the Left Indian Movement of Multinational Unity Pachakatik, 6 deputies. Roldosisti Party, the left-centrist, populist, 1 deputy. Democratic People's Movement, left-wing radical, an electoral wing of the Marxist-Leninist Communist Party of Ecuador, 1 deputy. SUMA is the centrist, 1 deputy. Party of Institutional Updating and National Action, the right, 0 deputies. Socialist Party, the Wide Front of Ecuador, the left, 0 deputies. The Municipalistski Movement for National Integration, the left, 0 deputies. The Democrats of the left is left, it is dismissed in 2013. In assembly 8 more parties, on 1 deputy are represented. Ecuador in the administrative territorial relation is subdivided into 24 provinces. Provinces are divided into 199 cantons. Cantons are divided into arrivals.
12 main islands, 5 of which are inhabited, and numerous small islands with a total area of 7880 km.
Mostly are the territory of national park. The population of islands minus persons. 2010. The capital of Puerto Baquerizo Moreno on the island San Cristobal. Subsistence economy. The important place is taken by fishery. Catch of a tuna and lobster. But the main article of economy of islands, the tourism opening the fantastic world of unique animals and plants for visitors.
The economy of Ecuador is based on production and export of the oil, yielding more than a half of revenues from export of the country.
Ecuador is the largest exporter of bananas in the world.
In 2000, Ecuador struck the hardest economic crisis. A default on external debts was declared.
In March 2000, the parliament approved a number of structural reforms, including introduction of US dollar as the state currency of Ecuador. Dollarization stabilized economy, economic growth began.
But in 2006 the government sharply raised taxes on the foreign and private oil companies working in Ecuador that at once sharply reduced products of the oil sector of national economy.
It resulted in economic instability, private investments were sharply reduced, and economy indicators in general decreased. The DD per capita in 2009, $7,500. The 123rd place in the world. Unemployment rate in 2009, -7. 9% is lower than the level of poverty, -35% of the population in 2006. Since January 1, 2020, the minimum wage in Ecuador makes $400. The industry: 36% of GDP, 21% working. Production, processing of agricultural products, textile production, woodworking. Agriculture: 7% of GDP, 8% working. Bananas, coffee, cocoa, rice, potatoes, cassavas, sugar cane. Livestock production, fishery. Services industry -57% of GDP, 71% working. Export in 2017, $19.12 billion, oil, bananas, flowers, shrimps, cocoa, coffee, wood, fish, hemp. The main buyers: the USA -31.5%, Vietnam -7.6%, Peru -6.7%, Chile -6.5%, Panama -4.9%, Russia -4.4%, China -4%. Import in 2017, $19.03 billion, industrial output, oil products, consumer goods. The main suppliers: the USA -22.8%, China -15.4%, Colombia -8.7%, Panama -6.4%, Brazil -4.4%, Peru -4.2%. 45% of the electric power are developed on thermal power plant, other on hydroelectric power station, but possibilities of hydropower of Ecuador are used not completely. Is she part of water resources in the Andes? Isn't used. in most part of plains and mountains. 44% is covered with damp equatorial forests. Recently, volumes of cutting of deciduous breeds increased.
Forest crafts such as preparation of a balsa tree, heavy juice, collecting a capican palm nuts develop.
75% of wood are used as fuel. The mountainous landscape complicates development of transport network. Total length of all railroads is only 1,200 kilometers.
Highways with a hard coating -23256 km and soil -5044 km.
The Pan-American Highway connecting coastal and some internal cities passes through the capital, Quito.
The main railway communications connect Guayaquil with Cuenca and Quito.
Guayaquil and Puerto Bolívar, the largest ports.
10 commercial airlines carry out the international and also internal air transport from José's Airport of Joaquín de Olmedo.
Armed Forces of Ecuador.
The set of troops of the Republic of Ecuador intended for protection of freedom, independence and territorial integrity of the state.
Consist of ground forces, naval and the air force.
In 1996 on active service in armed forces there were people.
In 1995 expenses on military needs made $386 million, or 2.1% of DDD. Population -16,904,867. 2020 assessment.
The population is concentrated in two largest cities, Guayaquil and Quito. Other settlements of the country don't exceed 400,000 people.
Annual gain -1. 2%. Birth rate -17 for 1000. Mortality -5.2 for 1000. Emigration -0 for 1000. Average life expectancy -74.5 at men. 80.6 at women. Contamination: a virus of an immunodeficiency. HIV -0.4%. Assessment of 2018. Ethno-racial structure. Metizes of 65%, Indians of 25%, white 7%, blacks of 3%. Literacy -94% of men, 92% of women. According to 2017. Religions. Catholics of 74%, other 26%. These are followers of Christian and Missionary Alliance, the Evangelical Conference of the Assemblies of God in Ecuador, God's Churches, Baptists, Adventists.
The only official language according to Article 2 of Chapter 1 of the Constitution of Ecuador is Spanish, and languages of cross-cultural communications and communication officially recognized along with Inquaquiran.
Other languages of indigenous people are used by their carriers as equated to official in places of full-time compact residence. The urban saturation is 64.2%. In 2020, the West Coast and the center of the country are most densely populated. Quito, the capital of Ecuador, was founded by Spaniards on the place of the small Indian settlement. Guayaquil, the largest city, is large port and shopping center of the country. He is located in the fertile agricultural region. Cuenca, the third largest city, is considered cultural center of the country, with a large number of students and popular among the American and European pensioners expats. A coast seaport with the population in card inhabitants. Reconstruction which will allow Manta to become the largest seaport in the region is conducted. Ecuador distinguishes a combination of the Spanish cultural heritage to cultural traditions of indigenous people. Once the territory of the country entered about structure of the Empire of Inca. Quito, which remained more better than the other colonial capitals of South America, shows fine examples of early colonial architecture.
All art forms developed in a colonial era under the influence of church and carried a print of Baroque style dominating in Europe.
Now many operating churches store invaluable works of art in Quito. Pictures, church utensils, wood carving, statues and various jewelry.
The Ecuadorian cuisine inherited traditions of the Indian people with their diverse menu.
Very popular dishes are here. Potato blood soup, queso, potato cheese and avocado soup, broth with fried veal hoofs, a ceviche, fruit seafood. The fish, shrimps, oysters marinated in lime juice with burning pepper. Fried banana which is given as snack or a garnish, a cangracat. Boiled crabs. Well-known fried forge. Guinea pig. Give both in a mountain part of the country and on the coast. In the province of Orellana, locals eat larvae of a palm bug fried on a brazier. Ecuadorian beer is considered one of the best in South America. B-sides in bars for certain will offer national chicha, pisco from a sugar cane or aguardiente vodka. The main foreign policy objectives of Ecuador is protection of the territory against external aggression and internal illegal activity, support of the United Nations, Union, and the Organization of American States, OAS. A claim for 200 miles of the marine territory from the coast for fishery. Revision of the Protocol on the World, Friendship and Borders of 1942. Rio Protocol, which finished confrontation between Peru and Ecuador on a territorial dispute.
Though the foreign trade relationship of Ecuador was traditionally focused on the United States of America in 1970th and 1980th as the member of the Organization of the Countries Exporters of Oil.
OPEC afforded Ecuador times to show independent foreign policy. The international foreign policy relations of Ecuador at the President Rodrigo Boris Avalos in the late 80s became more various than those that were at the President Leon Febres Cordero Rivadavia, who was guided by policy of the United States. For example, Ecuador made active the relationship with the Third World, the international organizations, Western Europe and the socialist countries. In 1969 Ecuador and the Soviet Union established diplomatic relations, but only in 1972 when Ecuador joined OPEC, the USA began to show interest in this country. To the middle of the 1970th years the Soviet Union supported embassy in Quito and competed for influence in this country to the United States. 16.08
2012 Ecuador granted a political asylum in the territory of the embassy in London to the founder of WikiLeaks, to Julian Assange.
Of Julian Assange deprived of citizenship of Ecuador and gave police of London Ecuador issued to the former employee of CIA Edward Snowden documents of the refugee. Also far. Write comments. Read comments. Interesting people will tell interesting stories. All of good mood and good luck.